Okay, so we are approaching the start of this session. This session is about the complementarity between experiential and scientific knowledge. This is at stake. Yeah. I am the president-elect of the large-scale ecosystem restoration section of SER. And that section, which is different from the European section, has mainly practitioners. And the message of the practitioners was that scientific knowledge is not a limiting factor at what happens in reality. Yeah? And this was the idea of this first attempt to communicate this in a European context. Yeah? So, to be very short, I will invite the first speaker, Jolene, to present us something about building partnership for landscape scale conservation, a social science tool or things like that?
It's a tool for everyone in landscape scale conservation.
A tool for everyone. So please, Jolene, take the floor.
Thank you. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for turning up. I hope the coffee will keep you awake for a while at least. This is a piece of work I'm delighted to be able to present. I work at the RSPB in the UK, and I did this work in collaboration with Natasha Constant, my colleague at RSPB, and Mehmet, Mark, and Jonathan from the Warwick Business School. And this is we've heard a lot of talks today in the first half of this session this afternoon and all around in the whole conference about working with stakeholders and working with partners. And this tool we built and this guidance and this research is sort of more turning the lens on ourselves and what makes us good collaborators. So this piece of research led to two guidance documents I'd like to highlight, which are available on the LSP website. So it's one of the guidance documents is about identifying and developing those collaborative partnerships, and another is on assessing individual behaviours and competencies in what makes someone a good collaborator. And they're linked to two hopefully usable and accessible Excel tools that will hopefully help people when they're building sort of these landscape scale collaborations and building the teams or developing your staff and teams that work in them. These are sort of tools that can help you improve potentially particular roles and develop your staff in skills in particular roles where they are key in maintaining those relationships and those collaborations. So why did we do this? Well, as we all know, landscape scale, and has been widely discussed, landscape scale conservation, landscape scale restoration, it needs collaboration. While we might look and see a lovely, gorgeous landscape, this is up in the Cairngorms, there's actually a lot of different people and a lot of different interests that are part of this landscape that often sort of get overlooked. And we've seen sort of a few tools been mentioned earlier that help you identify those stakeholders that you might want to work with. But while we might look at those collaborations and creating those collaborations as a sort of inter-organisational phenomenon that require memorandums of understanding or agreements between organisations and partnerships between different organisations, the collaborations rely on individuals. They rely on individuals in projects, and often they're built on relationships that people have that preceded any thought of a landscape scale restoration. It will be something, friendships that are built up by two people in the area. They're sitting in the pub and they say, right, why don't we write a grant application for this? So collaborations rely on individuals, and the relationships, it's being proven in the UK, that the relationships between individuals are of central importance to the success of an initiative. So people that have good relationships, if they move on from a partnership, they get another job elsewhere, those relationships break down, often the project can break down as well. The characteristics of these people, therefore, the managers, the workers in the organisations, are highly significant, but almost always overlooked when evaluating the source of success in conservation. And the value of interpersonal skills is largely unrecognised. We hire on technical skills. We recruit on that basis. And we sort of recruit people with a gut feeling about how good they might be getting on with other people if that's a key part of their role. So we wanted to ask what behavioural attributes make an effective collaborator. If I've got someone that I know in a project that is going to be key in collaborating and working with those business people or those local communities or those other NGOs or something, what makes that person an effective collaborator? We wanted to formalise these skills. Fortunately, we managed to collaborate with Mehmet and Mark, who had already done this kind of research in a commercial sector. So they looked at understanding the psychology of collaboration and what makes an effective collaborator, and that informed the international standard on collaborative business relationships. It's very different in our sector. We have to collaborate across a huge range of different industries and huge range of different types of collaborations, and not always around a commercial product. And ours is more value-driven, so it can be much more complex. So they did research that was qualitative research to go out there and understand, based on what they knew about collaboration skills from their previous work, they wanted to apply it in this new context. And they wanted to find out what the people's lived experience working in landscape scale conservation and restoration projects was. So talking to people with a lot of experience in these areas about what they found to be useful skills to have and what had contributed to things where these collaborations were successful, and also, crucially, what contributed to things where project failed. They wanted reflections on collaborative working in multi-partner projects as well. So they went out, they interviewed 22 people working in landscape scale conservation across a huge range of different organisations, businesses, local government, landowners, getting things at different levels of seniority, but people that had quite a lot of experience working in this area. One of the lovely things during their research is I got this email that really epitomised that we were having good success with what we were doing and that we were on the right track. One of the interviewees knew I was involved and emailed me this afterwards, saying that she really enjoyed the interview because she found out the skills that she'd spent her career developing just by doing things, by having a go. She hadn't realised that they could actually be learnt and directly learnt and taught rather than just those skills gained on becoming a better collaborator. She had gained them through trial and error in the field. So that feedback really struck home, which was great, that we were on the right track. So our results. So overall, we looked at across all the interviews and brought out common themes to everything. We found there were about 28 behaviours that promoted effective collaboration. There were crucially another 10 behaviours across all these dimensions that hindered collaboration, the types of behaviours people are exhibiting that really didn't help. And these were broadly sort of bucketed in 3 dimensions, and that was cultural, relational, and operational dimensions. So firstly, going through the cultural attributes. These are the sort of behaviours that support collaboration within a partnership. So they're the kind of behaviours you want to have in sort of the collaborative leader, the managers that are working out that enable your team to be collaborative. It's all very well employing really good people with really good interpersonal skills, but if they're not working in an environment that supports that type of collaboration, it's really hard for them to exhibit those skills. So all these behaviours, we sort of group them into attributes. And the first one is that understanding the vision. So it's really important, it came out as really important across all these things to understand the needs of the organisation and the visions of your partners. Information sharing, being an effective communicator, proactively involving your partners and being open-minded to where they're coming from and their views. And then reconciling those visions, having the skills to be able to look for the areas of compromise, recognise the sort of red lines you might have, but being clear about your motives with your partners and influencing them positively. Hindering behaviours, you focus on your own agenda, your secret, you lack empathy, none of that helps. Relational attributes, these are the behaviours that support, nurture, embed those personal relationships. So these are the ones where you need to maintain those individual relationships with partners. Being relationship-oriented, so someone that engages with these incoming partners, builds rapport, and thinks about how they can develop those relationships. From the first moment they meet someone, they've got an idea of how do I build that trust, build that relationship with someone. Being trustworthy and trusting, so having competency, knowledge and experience, and having integrity about what you're doing. You're reliable, you trust your partners, and you're honest and open with them. And being good at working with others, working with an array of stakeholders, being flexible, creating positive relationships. You can adapt to different kinds of communication styles and conversation styles with different people to motivate them. Hindering is if you exploit people, if there's evidence of that, if you're single-minded, if you have a very short-term view of the relationship and its importance to you and not really considering them. And finally, the operational attributes, the behaviours that drive the operations and make that part of this good collaboration and strong collaboration. These were being strategic, recognising how what you're doing fits into the bigger picture, having a long-term approach and broad-scale approach where you recognise the implications of what you're doing to other things in the local area. Proactively engaging, asking for help, as well as giving help when asked for, and being supportive of others, accountable and reliable was really important as well, that you do what you say you're going to do, the integrity there. And being a problem solver, as well as asking for help, you're capable of reaching a compromise and you look for the solutions to these things in combination jointly with your partners. And hindering is where you're bureaucratic or you're bossy and you try to drive your own sort of ambitions and needs onto others. So yeah, as I say, these led to go into much more depth in these guidance documents and with the tools. And they sort of provide structure with the tools to how these things might be developed within teams or recruited for within teams as well. So yeah, and hopefully that's very useful for everybody in future. It is a UK-based exercise, so there will be contextual differences for different cultures. These might not be the same behaviours that are relevant to different cultures, but there potentially is things that might overlap as well. Yeah, I just thank all the research participants that gave their time to be part of this, my RSPB colleagues, Nancy Ockenden and David Thomas, VLSP, and ELSP, who funded everything. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a very useful presentation for everyone. And we still have 2 minutes. Yeah, it was a proof of...
I've got 3 on the time.
real knowledge about how to do it. So if there are questions from you, take profit, please.
Hi, thank you very much. It was very useful. I was thinking, do you have any tips with working with people that have all the bad behavior that you were explaining? What would you do?
Working with people with the bad behaviours, at the moment I'm involved in a couple of collaborations where I'm kind of avoiding those. Because, I mean, it's hard when you're working in a team aimed for restoration, and that's one of the problems. If all the agreements are signed up and everything else, it still doesn't make people do what you want them to do. I would say it would be having that open and honest conversation if you still want to work with that person. So in my situation, I'm not losing out. I've got a full day of work and everything else. If they're not engaging with me, that I haven't really lost out. If I need them to do something, it would be initially having that frank conversation and looking at why whatever you need isn't being met, and it might be a trust building thing. They don't, you know, that might have been skipped in the early stages or something like that. And looking for those hints and tips about what about the personal relationship that isn't there, that means they're contacting you and you're contacting them or anything else. You can go into sort of having a third-party mediator involved if it's an actual conflict or something about, and trying to find that area of compromise and go back to what we both agree needs to happen and build back out from there. Again, would probably be the start of where I would go. Various organisations have sort of guidance and HR documents. There's a lot of sort of information out there about how to build relationships with people. I know people in sort of the health and development sector, personality testing is, you know, second nature to them. So looking at documents out there and learning from other sectors that possibly do it more effectively than we do might be good as well. But yeah.
Great answer. Thank you so much, Jolene. And now it's time to go to the second presentation. And I will invite Sebastian with a subject on long-term provision of ecological socio-economic functions through simulation-informed landscape design. So we now go from human resource to the implementation phase of the monitoring project. Please, Sebastian, take the floor.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for this nice introduction. We keep talking about collaborations now, but as nicely said, we're thinking about how to actually use research methods to collaborate much better. I hope I get your attention now. I know it's hard. I have to compete with your phones and with your computers. I see them there, the computers. But I would like to make a point with saying that I feel in a restoration context, we can make much more use of simulation models to collaborate much better. And this is the topic that I'm going to presenting today. So I want to show you how we can use simulation models to inform landscape design towards improving provision of ecological and socio-economic functions in the long term. Well, I hope it works with the click. Yeah. Here I just wanted to motivate first why we're doing this. You're all aware of that for sure. These are just examples from Germany. I'm from Germany, by the way. And as you can see, we face many problems, and you can probably immediately see that we have that different disciplines would be involved in understanding these problems and solving these problems, from ecology, environmental science, from socioeconomics, and many more. And that these problems occur not individually, but at the same time in the landscapes. And in a dynamic world where the system is still changing, so the climate is still changing, the land use is still changing. So what I want to say here is that we really need landscape level and interdisciplinary restoration under ongoing global changes. So climate and land use is still going to change in the next decades and centuries. Well, and yeah, this is what I wanted to stress today, that we can make use of such process-based models. I don't know how many of you know about them. They're pretty cool. They are kind of similar to weather forecast models, so weather forecasts that you see on the news. So computer models that represent system processes with mathematical equations, such as socioeconomic processes, plant vegetation processes, animal processes, or environmental processes. And what is cool about them, they can integrate, as you can see here, or as I just told you, integrate various disciplines at the same time. These computer models can test much more easily greater spatial scales, especially interesting for landscape and large-scale restoration. We can test more easily long-term effects, climate change effects over decades and centuries even. Even it doesn't take much time on the computer to run such scenarios. And we can test also the long-term effects of interventions, restoration measures in the field. And now I wanted to exemplify a bit to you with a case study of mine where we focus on sustainable rainforest use. Sustainable rainforest use in Indonesia, to be more precise, where we experienced a strong transformation from rainforest to monoculture oil palm and rubber plantations. Just to give you a number, in the 80s it was about, I think, about 70% of primary rainforest still left in Indonesia. And now it's only about 4% of primary rainforest. So there's a strong transformation to monoculture crop plantations. And you probably know all about palm oil. Think about the famous chocolate spread. So there is a lot of palm oil. So this is beneficial to us, of course. We get cheaper food, cheaper vegetable oil, to be more precise. So it's profitable to all of us humans globally. But more importantly, it's important to the local people there. They improve their socioeconomic welfare a lot through these monoculture plantations. But as you can imagine, we're losing a lot of biodiversity and related ecosystem functions, and this in turn has also a negative effect, long-term effect on the socioeconomics. Well, we had this example question here, or I have this question to you for today. We were wondering how can we design a landscape in such areas that balance more the socioeconomic and ecological benefits of the system. Well, and for that, I was really happy to be employed in a really nice project, interdisciplinary project that is called EFFORTS, which is an acronym for Ecological and Socioeconomic Functions of Tropical Lowland Rainforest Transformation, where we looked in Indonesia, more particular in Sumatra, on different aspects of the system. So environmental processes, ecological processes, and human dimensions to study rainforest transformation and policy recommendations. Well, and all of that I try to combine in a process-based model. And not any process-based model, but an agent-based, process-based model, where you can see here on the right, if you look very closely, you see gray houses, where you see individual farmers making individual decisions that drive land use change. So you see a map with different plantations of oil palm and rubber, and individual houses and farmers that make decisions on their properties, how to manage their land. So this model integrates now socioeconomic processes and ecological processes. Here are a list of the ones that we're currently focusing on, but we are still continuing to add different processes, different aspects of the system. And what is so nice about the model, we can now study really spatial and temporal effects. So we can assess functions over space and time. Well, let me introduce a bit about the model. It's rather complex, but just to get a better idea for you how that works. So each household, those are the agents, or these make individual decisions based on expected cash flows from their plantations. And this leads eventually to a realized landscape. And from this realized landscape, we can then calculate ecological functions. Those are mostly, not all of them, are correlated with land cover type, age, and landscape structure. We use also, or we coupled this model with a famous model that's called INVEST, that I don't know how many know about this model, that quantifies ecosystem services. Well, and the economic perspective, the blue part here on the left, goes on by calculating the yield of the plantations, depending on the crop prices, the global market prices for palm oil, for instance. We can calculate the revenue for each individual household and subtracting then the cost for investment, labor, and consumption each individual household has, and then know about the wealth of each farmer. And those are information about their socioeconomic status that we can use to understand interventions better. Well, and this is repeated every year, here on the left-hand side here, these processes, which leads to dynamics, right, that you see on the right, landscape change dynamics or land cover change dynamics. Well, now I wanted to show you one result. I hope it's not too complex. I try to guide you through it. It's an example result, just to show you, to exemplify what we can do with such a model. So if you look on the x-axis, you see now a change in the fragmentation of the landscape from bottom to top. I define it as increasing fragmentation. So below, little fragmentation, little value here means low fragmentation because the forest is still rather connected. There are connected patches. And above, the high value of fragmentation means, okay, there is less connectivity among patches. And then on the x-axis, we change the oil palm fractions in the landscape. Why oil palm? Because oil palm has particularly really damaging impact on the ecosystem, but it has high advantage of this on socioeconomics. Right, there is a high output of oil palm plantations. But when we don't have oil palm here on the right, with low percentage on the right, on the left, maybe I should try to show if it's possible here. No, it's difficult to show. So the 0.1 means low oil palm fractions, means at the same time high rubber fraction. Okay, and then you see a lot of bluish color shades in the center of the plot, which represents index of multifunctionality, where we integrated different socioeconomic and ecological benefits into this index. And a higher or darker color means basically a better provision of all these benefits. So you see immediately that with low fragmentation on the bottom and with low oil palm fraction on the left, you see that this will be benefit most of our ecological and economic functions that we considered in this index. Of course, this is highly depending on how we define this index. And if we go even more into more detail, if we change the agriculture area in the landscape from here on the left, from 10% agriculture area to the right to only 50% to 50% agriculture area, you see that the overall color shade of the multifunctionality decreases, right? It will get brighter to the right. Means, okay, it's not so surprising that that multifunctionality decreases with agriculture area in the landscape. So, well, but this is not all what we wanted to do. We're still continuing now to how can we actually manage these systems much better. So with the model, I'm now also exploring how we include tree islands into the plantations, into the landscape to maximize landscape multifunctionality. And this is, of course, not possible in real nature to say, okay, we just plant a tree island here and there. We need to understand how can we achieve such tree island distribution in the landscape by designing policies that farmers actually convert their crops, their plantations to agroforests. Well, at the same time, we have a lot of land use change still happening, right? The global prices for palm oil changes a lot. For instance, during the beginning of the Ukraine war, the prices for vegetable oil increased a lot, and this drives decision-making of the farmers, right? How to manage their land. And this we have to account for and at the same time here, and we will do that. So this leads already to my last slide. I hope you got now first that multifunctionality really depends on the landscape configuration. But what was more important to me for this talk now is that you hopefully have seen that process-based modeling can test different landscape designs, but also interventions, different policy interventions that we will do next. We'll hopefully show you in 2 years in the next conference. And that these tools can really help for restoration planning, but also for talking to stakeholders and for teaching. So we use these tools also a lot for communication and teaching, because you see it's nicely to look at. You can click buttons and see what happens with the environment and with the socioeconomic and ecological outputs. And with that, I just wanted to mention, if you're interested in collaborating, contact me. I'm also working on Mediterranean woodlands and alpine grasslands, if you're focusing on these areas. And thank you and all the people that were involved and funding institutions for this great work that we did. Thank you so much.
Another great presentation, and also in time, so we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Please, if you have, please.
That was really interesting. I was just wondering if you can build in more decision-making factors than just cost into the model, so status or other features that people make decisions about land use on, rather than just having one driver.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking about, Yeah, it would be possible, but we would need to discuss. So this is actually not my expertise. I'm plant ecologist, but yeah, that's why I was asking. Yeah, contact me if you feel there's more social aspects that would need to be accounted for, but it would be easy. I guess it depends on how complex it is to get into it, to put into it. What we wanted to do actually next is to design different payments for ecosystem services, and study how we can drive the farmers to actually adopt these payments and change their lands. And there we wanted to include the values of the farmers in terms of, okay, what are their environmental beliefs, and see how this affects the adoption of these payments with the same model. Yeah.
Thank you, Sebastian. I also had many questions, but I take profit of this moment to tell you that tomorrow at 10:30, we have a cross-cutting session with all landscape people, those interested in coming to that. So it will be an opportunity to further discuss all the issues. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we go to a presentation linking restoration of peatland with a catchment approach. And I invite Eric and Paul. Paul, I take profit to present him. He's from the board of large-scale ecosystem restoration. So they will present us together what they are doing in Norway from a very, very practical and experiential point of view. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm Paul Martin Eid. I'm working at the Environmental Agency in Norway, and I'll say a little bit first about our restoration program, and then Eirik will take over, and I will end the presentation after. So the title is Constraints and Opportunities for Catchment Scale Restoration of Peatlands and Waterways in Norway. So we tried to focus on the catchment scales for our restoration projects, and that's quite a new thing for us. And this is an example picture from Norway, as you see. Let's go here. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So just very shortly, we started wetland restoration, which is what we mainly do, in 2015 in a national project. And after 10 years, we have restored about 950 hectares of marshes and wetlands. It might not be a very big area in this, but I know you restore much larger areas, but we have a lot of smaller peatlands. I'll show you on a map after. So it's still a lot of work. We don't have any total overview of damaged and destroyed peatlands in Norway. Although some AI mapping is underway, and we do have broad estimates of how much we have. And as you see on the last paragraph, we roughly estimate we have to use 500 years to restore all our damaged wetlands if we keep up the speed as we do now. I can also say that we use about 2.5 million euros a year in Norway for this, so not very much. Yeah, here you can see we have a very diverse country with going south to north, as you see, and we have a very high diversity of peatlands and fens. So for us, we have been a broad learning from both continental places like Finland and Estonia and more marine places like England. So we have to combine all techniques in our country to be able to restore the diversity of peatlands. Okay, I think Eirik will take over.
Right, thank you. So we rather recently realized that we can look at wetland and peatland restoration in a catchment perspective. That is largely due to our topography. Our landscape is shaped so that it fairly well facilitates a catchment-based approach. Because our catchments are usually, they can be scaled up and down, and we can deal with them at a very manageable scale. We have well-established hydrological monitoring in Norway due to hydropower and flood risks and so on for over 100 years. And so peatland and river restoration, there's a potential synergy there between the two. However, property boundaries can be a bit complicated. I overlaid property boundaries on this map. And also, we still have limited access to restoration of private land. We work mainly in nature reserves and on state and municipality-owned land. And we see that land and water in Norway is managed differently, so combining the two is a bit difficult still. And they're managed at different levels. So this is one of the peatlands we restored a couple of years ago, and it's just to demonstrate that many of the peatlands, they are situated quite close to streams. You can see the stream in the bottom of the picture here, so they drain directly into them often, and many of the small peatlands, they share the same recipient. Right, so for our peatland program, we have three goals. One of them is climate change mitigation, and then we have reduction in climate gas emissions and habitat improvement. So in a catchment-based approach, the climate change mitigation is an important one because we can see that restoring many peatlands together can improve flood mitigations at higher rain events. And so the expected effects in catchment and beyond is also, we gain increased landscape variation when we open up the peatlands and clear cut the forests that grow on them and restore the peatlands. And also we achieve, hopefully, increased ecosystem connectivity. So the knowledge base we're working on, we have many decades of hydrological data, plenty of meteorological data. This map shows the placement of hydrological monitoring stations for which we have data for going back 100 years or so. But we can see that but also we have a very detailed map topography, and we know a lot about larger peatlands. But many of these hydrological stations are closed now, so we're in a situation that we know less about the current situation. And we know very little about the extent of degraded peatlands, and we understand poorly the runoff dynamics of peatlands combined. But researchers have recently reached out to us, and they want to start fill the gaps.
Yeah, so what Eirik told us is that we do have a lot of catchment data, and some of it we want to use the historic data to see the effects of all the ditches that were made, and see if we can see this back in the historic data. I'll just tell about a project we are running close to Oslo in this area, the Gupu river catchment. We used LIDAR data and all available sources to map all the mires in the catchment and all the fence. And I don't know if you see it, but we also marked peat mines and also mapped all the drainage canals. So the total area of this catchment is 1,700 hectares, and with a total wetland area of 106 hectares. And as you can see, it's scattered pretty much all around. There is 79 hectares of damaged wetland, and much of it is owned by governmental bodies, which makes it possible for us to have a goal of restoring most of it. As it's close to Oslo, it's also very popular for recreational use. This is how we work. You see our usual setup here with the excavator going on these wooden plates. I can recommend this. We can work in very wet conditions. And we have so far restored about 12% of the damaged peatland, and the plan for this year is to restore another 11%, which leaves us with 77% to do for the coming years. Yeah, it's just an example picture. You can maybe hard to see, but this is old abandoned peat mines here and here with some ditches, and it's also ditched in here and overgrown mire, and then we see the result a couple of years after. So we're pretty satisfied with the results here. It's so far looking very good. And this is the picture we saw Eirik had with the river up here and restored peat mines here. And you can see obviously how it has flooded. And here is our project for this year. So you can also, I think I have a picture of it. Yeah, here is one of this year's mires we are going to restore with old peat mines and roads and ditches. 1 minute, thank you. I think I have the conclusion here. So, catchment-based restoration in a bigger perspective, a model for larger scale adaptation in Norway. That is at least a way we can work in Norway, as we have this very defined topography, and it makes sense for us to then broaden the restoration efforts, and starting with wetlands, we can then work into forested areas as well. Yeah, so this is the main idea. We have big problems with the fjords and water quality in our fjords, and this is a way to meet that challenge. All right, I think that's everything I had. Yes? We are close.
Nice in time and very dynamic presentation because of two speakers. Did you practice before this row? No. So we have a couple of minutes for questions, if you like. Then I would ask, besides the scientific base, hydrological models and so on, what could not be modeled from scientific point of view in your success? What is the thing which is that know-how that you have? What would you tell by a story to the people what to do and not to do in these things?
I think one of the hard things to model is what is actually going to meet us when we start working at site, you know? We can do just as much from our maps and surveys, but when we start looking into the depths of the mires, we often have some surprises. And yeah, unless you do very extensive measurements before you start, you have to deal with those challenges when you meet them. So that's one thing I think it's hard to model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because we still have 1 minute, I would like to make a connection between your presentation and the first presentation.
Yes.
So did you have, let's say, these kind of problems, or did you didn't have? Your team was built from the very beginning with a very good relationship between people. How do you manage with those with the machines? Everyone is complaining about the people with the yellow things. Yeah, they don't sometimes do what you ask them. What about this?
Yeah, so you're right. There is always some questions and someone who's critical. One good thing is that we are doing this work on municipality land, you know, so it's not private land, but still it's a lot of users. So we have both. We try to use local media, local newspapers, and things like this to inform. And we also have meetings with some important stakeholders. So for one of these, it's the local history guys, you know, who their grandfather was digging this peat mine, and we are talking to those and trying to involve them then. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So it's very much interaction and trust building. This would be the key. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's hope that now we have an online participant. Martina is online, the technical team. Oh, Martina, nice to see you.
Hi.
How are you?
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm fine, thanks.
Martina is a passionate ocean scientist and also a member of our board of large-scale ecosystem restoration. So Martina will present us something about building trust with the people by education as a background on which later on one can formulate more substantial objectives. But this is not only related to this utilitarian perspective to have the trust in order to make restoration, but also, as you will see, it is important in itself by the relation with the people, to enjoy the people. So please, Martina.
Thank you, Virgil. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here, even if remotely. Today, I'm going to present the outcome of, let's say, the last 3 years of work, more or less. And this presentation is mainly focused on the marine and coastal ecosystems restoration. So what I'd like to do today with you is presenting something related to some successful experiments I had in the last few years, interacting with several different stakeholders. These stakeholders, as you will see in a few, are related both to the school environment, to the private sector, and to the marine research-related environment. So just to start, my first example comes from the 2 different projects I created and developed in the last 2 school years, both developed in Italy. The first one in a high school, which is located in the first designated UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, located in central Italy, around 70 kilometers apart from Rome, southward. The second one is another project developed as well for an high school, but this school is located in a rural area, so in a context which, from my perspective, is more than ever important to introduce to restoration and marine and coastal conservation topics than others, maybe. So in this, we work together with these wonderful students, addressing the restoration topic in different sessions, both developed in class, but also visiting some museums or working on field. And we focus mainly on the, one of the most important topic, which is the plastic pollution related issues, which is of course key aspects of restoration related activities we can do easily with young people, but of course they are not the only one. The other example I'm really proud of is this project, which is called Trash Talk in Action, because once again is focused around the challenge number 1 of the UN Ocean Decade, which is related to understand and beat marine pollution. And through this transboundary initiative, we worked in order to make these wastes talking, engaging the most important part of the local society that you can see here in this picture, so namely the kids. So this is a volunteer-based transboundary action, co-designed with a local guy from Mombasa County, and is all developed around the designation of an ocean club who engage these kids from the Mombasa in ocean-related topics through a weekly commitment. Our collaboration was really, really rewarding because we applied this concept of global citizenship, and we joined our effort with this guy who is not a marine scientist, but is really, really passionate about ocean advocating and performing in order to address these kind of messages. So we are topic and be really management and very legal traffic.
We had a gap, Martina.
Method. Can you hear me now?
Now, yes. We had a little gap.
Okay. Yes, I was saying that is a really, really delicate topic because it's not so easy to be free from unpleasant dynamics behind. This is the example that this kind of action requires even some larger efforts. And I put this example of a conversation I had in Venice during the Ocean Literacy World Conference in June, meeting this girl, Dr. Taiba, who is an entrepreneur, local entrepreneur, developing a sustainable waste management enterprise. And she warned me about this kind of illegal dumping activities, asking local people to throw this kind of garbage, but actually they are not really authorized by the local government, and all this stuff ends in the ocean, in the Indian Ocean. So we are working hard to make these kids aware also of these things, of course in a gamification, through a gamification approach, so in a really pleasant way for them, but we need to make them aware. Since we are also aware that this kind of passion starts at early life stages, and so we want to work a lot with them. In this kind of transboundary exchanges, I think it's important to fill the gaps among different continents and different contexts. And so this spring I was really happy and proud to be invited in a side event organized in Brussels within the European Ocean Days. And I was invited to the European Parliament, where I was in charge to represent this action beside other action in the Italian school. But this project was the really reason why I was there. And so I had the opportunity to introduce this within the European Mission Restore event. Of course, due to financial constraints, so far we had to interact almost remotely. This project is ongoing from 1 year and a half so far, but we managed to address a lot of our goals, so we obtained even more than expected, thanks to the community engagement and the local people, so we are really proud of that. Of course, the restoration plans is something that imply the respect of local people and their needs and behaviors consideration. So even if our main target are kids, we want to make their voices heard, and so we engage them in this nice initiative, which is European initiative, but is called Letter to the Sea, and is a way to make kids drawings and thoughts heard also at high policy level. Here there is the link of a video we are showing now in our YouTube channel. We did our activities addressing messages through fun ways, fun sessions. So we use arts and music to deliver our messages. We developed an album on this topic, using some plastic wastes as musical instruments. And we engage also the kids on some origami sessions to reproduce one of the most delicate and important ecosystems for them, which is the mangrove ecosystem, which is really, really important, but also vulnerable for coastal growth and unwise tourism activities. So they are learning a lot also on these aspects. Of course, for us, the integrated collaboration is important to integrate all the aspects needed to make work all these tasks. And the last example I'd like to share with you is this other initiative developed in Italy in a SPAMI area, or in Italian ASPIM area, which is a specially protected area of Mediterranean importance, which is also, of course, a marine protected area in Sardinia. This project was conceived by me in 2022. We addressed a manual co-designed with the local people. Is a bottom-up initiative developed engaging the private sector. This project was recognized as a best practice at European level, but we are really proud of that because it was co-designed with this man you can see in this picture, who was first of all a friend, but also, of course, colleagues. He is no longer with us, but this work represents his last work together with us. So we are really proud and moved, of course, speaking about that.
One more minute,
Yes.
Martina.
Okay, this is just the last slide to say that this participative approach was successful, and after the development of this project, also a restoration plan on the most important ecosystem there, the coralligenous ecosystems, was launched in collaboration with a Spanish NGO and partner. Working underwater with us to restore this ecosystem. So the approach worked. So I finish just leaving you with this sentence from Richard Law, which was an author of a book showing the relationship between children and natural environment in current and historical times, just to make us reflect on that. Thank you for your attention, and I'm here if you have any question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we see a very diverse presentation. This was from the background of education psychology. We have one question, if there is such a question, maybe from you? Too many questions. Okay. So, Martina, I think that the people understood your approach, yeah, and loved it, as you are a passionate person. Thank you so much, and we will go to another presentation, this time from Romania. If Julia is online.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Julia.
Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Hello, Julia. Julia is from WWF Romania. And this time we go from, they also have a department, I know it very well, dealing with education for children. But this time we go into the business of restoration. We will see big scale, strategic scale approach of restoration on the Danube, with hints which are not usually told to the people about the problems of relating with the institution and so on, which are specific to Eastern Europe. It's not so present here. Yeah. So please, Julia.
Oh, yes. So today I will tell you my side of story. I'm working for WWF Romania almost 20 years. And yeah, today I want to tell you about my experience with NBS implementation in the lower Danube floodplain and the Danube Delta. Before starting to prepare the presentation, I just read the guidelines, and the guidelines for this session, there was something case study, the key role of case studies. This is what I will talk about. I think case studies are helping us to stay in the reality of the ground, and in the same time, I think we should keep in mind that having small NBS projects, we can pave the way to the larger scale. Somehow planning small steps to larger change. From 2009 around, we started to implement NBS projects. And in the whole Danube Basin, WWF offices, from 2009 until now, we managed to implement NBS on around 16,000 hectares, from which 600 are in Romania. Now I will start sharing the presentation. Okay. So, and coming back in Romania, let's see if it works.
It works.
Okay. And now coming back in Romania, we have a vision for the Danube floodplain and the Danube Delta. And the vision sounds like this. Natural processes providing benefits and services for people and nature are maintained and enhanced along the lower Danube Green Corridor and the Danube Delta. To assess the restoration opportunity along the lower Danube and in the Danube Delta, some years ago, we conducted a study named floodplain restoration opportunity analyze. And using some criteria, we managed to identify the potential restoration sites. This study showed us that here in Romania, along the Danube and in the Danube Delta, there is an opportunity of 160,000 hectares. Here is a map which shows you with the green the sites where we already implement NBS projects, and with the blue are projects under implementation in different stages of implementation. So, as I told you at the beginning, WWF is in Romania have almost 20 years of experience. And all these years, our approach was to involve stakeholders to stimulate the development of both ecology and economy through win-win situation, or to take into account the future management of the areas. So these approaches led us to reconnection to natural flooding and water circulation, bring us more diverse habitats for species, and of course new opportunities for economic activities in those areas. Now, as I told you, I almost have 20 years of experience, and of course I had to confront some challenges during these years, and I have some conclusions about this. I think it's not about, so when it comes about NBS implementation, I think it's not about the lack of interdisciplinarity of expertise or the lack of local supporters of the local stakeholder support. I think it's not even about the money. More, I think it's about that nature conservation is not considered an overriding public interest. I think cap subsidies are not our friends in doing MBS. Then land fragmentation, land ownership, and land property documents. And I have to say this, that the lack of authorities' involvement. And when it comes about demonstrating the economic benefits of NBS for the local communities, I think having an aging population and a high rate of migration doesn't help too much to prove the economic benefits of MBS. Now I'm at the end of the presentation, and I want to say some words about our newest case study, which will be implemented in Danube Delta, at the border with the Ukraine, and how we approach this project. So, to have a base for public debates, for public involvement and consultations, we conducted a series of studies. The first study was a concept note for restoration. This study helped us to identify the general characteristics of the restoration potential site, and then helped us to design the draft of the measures. So this study, so the concept note, helped us we used it in the public debates. Then we had a sociological study which identified the local attitudes and perceptions regarding the restoration. And another study was about urban and architecture study. This study was elaborated aiming to obtain the vision for local socioeconomic development, having in mind the natural assets and the ecological restoration. So the same study was based for public debates. Here I have some images from these three studies. So here are some images from the concept note for restoration. Here are some graphs which are indicated, which indicates that here 75% of the people who respond to the questionnaire, they are pro restoration of that area. And here is the vision for the socio-economical development of the area. In the end, so we do NBS for nature, but in the same time for people, because they have to thrive along the nature. In parallel with what I told you until now, you have to know that we work for upscaling this nature restoration. And in our activities, we have in mind to influence financial aspects or the legal background, and to engage and support decision makers from different sectors, to support the scaling up of restoration. So this was my presentation. This was somehow my part of story, and I think together possible to bring nature back for our benefits in the end.
Thank you. I'm shocked everyone is 12 minutes fixed. So we have question. If last presentation was about children and so on, maybe a little bit not so near our direct interest. Here it's exactly our business. So please, if you have questions about what they are doing in Romania. If there are not, I will provide you an information which is relevant also for WWF. I talked with Conservation Carpathia. You know Conservation Carpathia.
Yes,
show you the kind of experiential knowledge which is not available. I talked to in one of our excursions here, and they told me something like this. We have teams distributed in the cities, localities. And if one person from our team, a young ecologist, is too radical, and he says, don't make illegal logging, don't put your garbage in the river, because they see this. Then the mayor calls the boss to whom I talked and says, change this guy from here, because I need to be voted again. And the people he is reporting, even to policy and so on, because the law it's allowing, will no longer vote me. And he is doing this. His own people are changing to other jobs where they are not so uncomfortable and are replaced with people which allow the continuation of the institutional relations, which you referred diplomatically here, because WWF is a global organization and should be diplomatic and so on. But at the grassroots, that is different. And now I will put you a difficult question, like I would be from a scandal journal. Do you have such problems also in WWF, in the Danube? Do you move your people from one place to another as an experiential knowledge to make the things work?
No, it didn't happen until now. I don't know that someone from the field to call our director to complain about us who are working on the ground. But we know this. So we faced these problems with the mayors in Romania, related to garbage, because garbage is disposal along the rivers. And I had the courage to discuss with the mayor and to try to find solutions together. How to educate the local community not to continue with this kind of behavior. Yeah. So we try not to be so radical. Just it's forbidden to put there the garbage, but better to work together to find a solution.
Okay, thank you, Julia.
Yeah, this is our approach. Yeah, to work together with them to find solutions.
Great, congrats. Also congrats to your director, Iordache, which is my best friend. So thank you, Julia, thank you.
Now you're welcome. Yeah. So I have a message for the participants. If they want to see the Danube floodplain, which is in some parts 10 kilometers wide, so they are welcome in Romania to have some field trips to understand the ecosystem.
So you are welcome in Romania with WWF, which is big business. So now I'll go to the last presentation. As you use in Romania, the moderator put his presentation, the last one, not the first one. Yeah? This is in order to buffer the eventual postponing of other presentation. Now, please, the technical department, project my presentation. Before starting this rather complex issue of cumulative impact assessment and so on, which is huge, I have put it online too. I would like to tell you that on the WhatsApp group, I have screened by the criterion of know-how all the presentation by their abstracts from the landscape. Yeah. So the point which we would like to share with you, besides what is technically told here, is that, as we have just seen, without experiential knowledge, which sometimes cannot be even disclosed, I have done something which is not polite now, to disclose something which other people told me. But I do this all the time because in Romania, I am also part of the civil society. I'm not only a teacher at the university. So I took the opportunity to send this message by a broadcast, and more than this, to have it registered and available to all Romania. So in this way, I am sure that the feedback to the authorities, because I have not given name, yeah? Otherwise I will have a trial on my own, or several, yeah? This message will go to the people, yeah? So this is how we work in societies where it is more difficult than in Norway to interact, or where the people are not so receptive to that kind, yeah? And why are they not so receptive to that, let's say, nice behaviors because those with good behaviors in certain groups are the minority. So now I can go to this presentation and tell you about our work at catchment scale in a critical zone observatory. There is the context in which I will shortly tell you several things, which sometimes are very well known, but not so often are put into practice. The first one is that, at least here in the European context, but also in USA, Australia, and so on, Canada, we have plenty of scientific knowledge. But if you look at the number of patents in the patents database about the technologies to restore ecosystems, even small scale, I did this, you will not find almost anything. That means two things. Either restoration ecology is something like the secret of Coca-Cola, and we keep it. Yeah? We don't patent it, but we keep it. Or we don't have that know-how. Yeah. When you look at the restoration in itself, where it happens, it is clear that there is the know-how, to some extent, evaluable by the success of the restoration. But in many cases, and in Eastern Europe and generally in not so less developed from an environmental point of view societies, this know-how, and I am responsible for what I say, is not existing. Why it is WWF present here? Because they have this know-how, and they did restoration in Romania by using the global know-how and transfer it. If you look at the local actors, there are almost no projects dealing with restoration, only strategies, plans, and then recycle it again. Other money, other strategies, other plan, no implementation. So this is an issue. Yeah? The second issue is how the scientific knowledge can be coupled with this know-how, technically speaking. These are the readiness level approach in developing technologies, which is used also in EC competition and so on. In short, here are many details and so on. Up to readiness level 4, the problem, the ball, is in the responsibility of scientists. When you transfer the technology to business, it starts the problem of know-how. So up to level 1 to 4, if some people would adopt this kind of structured development of restoration technologies, which is standard in environmental management, yeah? Up to level 4, we will have a business ecosystem, research ecosystem. From level 4 to 5, 6, up to 9, we will have the business ecosystem. And in between, there is the so-called innovation ecosystem. There are no innovation ecosystems in restoration ecology, formal innovation ecosystem. And one idea of our approach is to build such an innovation ecosystem by coupling the business with the research ecosystems. The practitioners, in short, which are present here, either NGO or businesses, are doing the job without a formal connection with the newest products from scientific knowledge. They are doing their job, the scientists are doing their job. These jobs are more or less decoupled. Yeah? How to couple them? This would catalyze and increase the knowledge transfer and couple the scientific knowledge with the informal know-how, yeah? Which is the property, more or less, of the business ecosystem. I'll skip these, which describe each readiness level and show from level 6 of the technology development, the scientific risk is eliminated. Yeah, this is stated. So the role of the scientists are no longer present. This is the story about the knowledge business ecosystems. And another point which is classic, but is not so much used, we have seen it even today. For instance, we had those fantastic models, process-based models. Yeah? Those are extremely expensive. There is no reason to apply them from the very beginning. Yeah? The standard way of decision-making is to use in the first phase, is the tiered approach. Cheap method for screening, then more expensive method to see if it is something which would deserve the big money for process modeling in the last phase of process modeling. Yeah? Because I didn't ask you at that time, but one question for process modeling is the database. If you have used INVEST, the database as a sub-model, subroutines or things like that, the database is easy. But if you look for more realistic than INVEST, which is very simplistic, yeah, then you need a full integrated monitoring system, which is another problem. Yeah. It's huge. Yeah. So this is the point, to use a tiered approach. Yeah. And we imagined such a thing. In the parlance of technology development, you have to produce a flowing chart, production chart. Yeah? This is a standard flowing production chart. From the top is the input from laterals to the end. Yeah? It is not very clear here because it is very small. Just to have the big cheap picture, I will zoom in. Yeah? In the first phase of the screening to develop a technology for cumulative impact assessment of measures in a catchments, including restoration measures to buffer pollutants. For instance, targeting point sources would not be something in our business, yeah? But it would be very important if you eliminate some point sources like acid hydrangea or things like that. Yeah? But if you cannot resolve the problem with the point sources, then you go to the control of diffuse pollution, where it is very important to restore buffer zone, lateral, transversal, all the story. It's kind of biogeochemistry. But what I want to show here is that the first thing is very cheap. You just screen using an ecosystem service mapping and simulate some land use changes using something like your model, and see if the output of pollutants from the landscape is sensitive to that land use changes. If this is sensitive and suggests you that potential restoration will be important, then you go to the further step of diagnosis based on the functional traits of the plants, the situation in the polluted areas. After diagnosis of the current state, you simulate the effects of restoration. After you simulate the effects of restoration, you dig into the optimization of the parameters for the restoration sites. And then, in the end, you embed everything in the word is critical zone observatory, allowing to monitor in the long term the effect of the population of measures you have taken in that catchment. Yeah. This is something which is scientifically very complex, but it is workable because it is modular. You can take one or another step in function of the needs. Yeah? You don't need to cover all the big picture from the very beginning to the end. If you don't have a decision based on the efficiency, economic efficiency of that thing. Yeah? Now, in 1 minute, I make the link with the with the cross-cutting session from tomorrow. The cross-cutting session from tomorrow has these four terms. And such a holistic, let's say, approach as we have for designing cumulative impact assessment of multiple restoration projects in polluted catchments relates to all the terms, as expected. Yeah. And for instance, the presentation of the first speaker was for stakeholder engagement mainly. Yeah. The presentation of the second speaker here was for implementing monitoring. The presentation of Martina also for stakeholder. The presentation of Julia was more holistic, and the presentation of Paul and his colleague was for implementing. Yeah? So we will have tomorrow 4 parallel groups to engage some brainstorming ideas in order to see the challenges of this kind of landscape restoration. In 30 seconds, I will allow one question if there is, because we will finish our time. If there is. If there is not, then I will thank you very, very much for your patience and friendship to be with us here. And I would like to add one extra only thing. I have 10 seconds. Our first speaker told me before that he has to leave. To another friend who was talking, she did not leave. She was here up to the end. Yeah. So thank you very much.